Hello ghosts and ghouls. A few months ago, I reviewed a game by indie developer Puppet Combo, the name of which I absolutely butchered and was reminded repeatedly just how royally I fucked it up by many commenters who had better pronunciation skills than me. I learned two lessons that day: how to pronounce Samhain, and that you guys really enjoyed that I reviewed a Puppet Combo game. I received a lot of comments saying they were glad I reviewed it because most content covering indie horror games tend to be streams or let's plays, which are perfectly fine and enjoyable, but those who commented wanted deeper dives into horror games, as I and they believe they deserve the same degree of analysis as those made by the bigger developers. I was planning to review more Puppet Combo games at some point, but nothing was set in stone. It was just on my video idea list. I was playing another game for a possible review, but I wasn't feeling it, when about a week or so ago, I got a cheeky little inbox from the one and only Puppet Combo asking if I wanted a code to play and possibly review their latest game, Murder House. I booted it up, and after the credits rolled about 2.5 hours later, I came to a pretty cool realization. This is probably the best game Puppet Combo has released to date. I want to make this very clear. I did receive a code for this game, and me saying it's the best game they've made may seem disingenuous, but I can reassure you that whether I receive a game for free or pay for it, that will not influence my opinion on a title. I will always be completely honest about my opinions and honest to you, because that is what matters to me the most. And I can honestly say that this is easily one of the best horror games I have played this year. So let's get this show on the road. This is my review of Murder House. The game takes place in 1987 and begins with a crew for a local news network, News 9, rocking up to the abandoned home of Anthony Smith, a man also pleasantly known as the Easter Ripper. The Easter Ripper was a notorious serial killer who worked a seasonal job at a shopping mall dressing up in a purple Easter bunny costume, so children could sit on his lap and pose for a photograph. He used this job to kidnap 11 children and take them back to his home, where he locked them up and committed unspeakable acts of torture on them before killing them. One child who escaped revealed that the Easter Ripper liked to release children in his greenhouse and force them to go on an Easter egg hunt, while he stalked and murdered them. After one of his victims escaped, the Easter Ripper turned himself into police, was found guilty of the murders of 11 children, and was executed. It's now 2 years after his execution, and the news crew plan to shoot a sensationalist story about the serial killer and how his ghost allegedly haunts the house where he committed brutal acts of violence on innocent children. The player controls Emma, an intern for News 9. Joining her is her grotesque boss, an 80s porn director lookalike Gary, reporter Dana, and cameraman Tom, who seems a bit quiet but generally comes across as a nice guy.
Don't ask me, I'm just the camera guy.
Gary managed to get access to the house by bribing a real estate agent with $50 before they entered, and another $50 once they left. But when they arrive, they find the abandoned car of the agent parked out the front of the house, and their ticket inside is nowhere to be seen. After Emma commits some casual break and enter, the crew sets up their lights and video equipment and shoot the intro for their news report.
Tonight we'll go inside his vacant home, where 11 innocent children spent their final moments in agonizing pain and terror.
Dana, who strives to be a legitimate journalist and not one who breaks into a serial killer's house to film a ghost story, tells Emma to explore the house to see if she can uncover anything new related to the murders. After rummaging around and fetching Dana a glass of water,
Wait, did you wash this?
They move to a dingy, dark basement to shoot another part of their segment. Gary, feeling that the story is a bit boring, forces Emma to put a blanket over herself to look like a ghost and run past the camera. Everyone thinks it's a stupid idea, but Gary and his bald head don't give a shit.
Gary, what the fuck are you doing?
No one's gonna want to watch this boring thing. And your dry reporting isn't helping.
Why would you say something so controversial yet so brave?
They want them eyes on TV screens and will do whatever it takes, no matter how disingenuous, to make it happen. Once they wrap that piece of quality journalism which would make an editor at the Daily Mail cream in their spunk-stained trousers, Gary tells Emma to get into their van and order some delicious pizza.
Take the van and go pick us up some pizzas.
I want my lunch. I can't work under these conditions.
How can you sit there and eat pizza?
But she is shocked to find that their van has been destroyed. She finds a note left on the van that says Emma and the rest of the crew will be playing an egg hunting game. Emma is a wee bit freaked out and runs back inside to tell the crew what happened, but Gary dismisses the incident and Emma's concerns, assuming the missing real estate agent is responsible. He insists they continue shooting the Easter Ripper segment. Emma is told to find Tom, who for some reason is chilling in the dark basement. He tells Emma all of the doors are locked and they are trapped inside the house. He gives her a key that he found and says to find the door it unlocks while he explores the house to try and find a way out. She heads upstairs and comes across Dana, who is running out of one of the rooms and screaming for help. Just after Dana says there is someone else in the house, the Easter Ripper appears behind her. He grabs her, lifts her into the air and slowly chops off her head with a sickle. Before Emma can comprehend how the Easter Ripper is back from the dead, he gives chase and the intern has to run for her life. She manages to escape meeting a grisly demise by using the key Tom gave her to open the door leading to the attic. The Easter Ripper then vanishes and Emma heads back downstairs to find Dana's severed head on a table. An egg labelled "Death" has been stuffed in her mouth. Emma realizes in order to escape, she must play the Easter Ripper's sick and twisted Easter egg hunt to find 3 more eggs and put them into a basket, all the while avoiding being brutally murdered by the Easter Ripper.
Come out, you chicken shit!
Murder House borrows a lot from 80s slasher and exploitation horror films. The story of Murder House is simple in its setup and execution, but also has some generally horrific moments and twists and turns that made your boy happy. All the characters are relatively one note, though are decently fleshed out through optional conversations Emma has with the rest of the crew during the setup of the game. The game can be completed in about 2 hours, so the characters don't have a lot of time for development, but they don't really need it. You learn enough about them so you get a good sense of who they are and their motivations for being at the House of Murder. As you explore, you also learn more about the Easter Ripper and his crimes, which leads to a moment near the end of the game after you explore the not so fun rooms, which honestly disturbed me. I also have to praise the pacing of this game. Puppet Combo slowly eases you into the game, letting you explore the house and get familiar with it. A really awesome touch was making the player actually have to do their job as an intern, have to bring in the gear, get the power on so the lights work, dress up as a ghost and run past Dana while she was filming a segment, get Dana a glass of water. All of these things could have been skipped over or be relegated to a cutscene, but Puppet Combo forces you to truly become the intern that you control. You do all this while the game slowly builds up tension and unease through environmental details, conversations, notes, atmosphere, and even the lighting gradually darkening as the sun sets. This tension just keeps building and building until it erupts in a wave of blood and guts when the Easter Ripper appears. By this point, you know which doors are locked and which aren't, where you can hide and where you might need to go. This means you don't have any annoying deaths because you're lost, scared, and confused. Rather than being a negative, it allows the game to progress at a good pace while also adding a thick layer of fear and direction. I never felt like the game was dragging on or that it was too short. It just gives enough to keep you interested and motivated to see what will happen next and excited about the horrors you'll come across. And just as the story is coming to a close, it throws in a twist that I didn't see coming, yet makes complete sense in hindsight. The ending is also extremely satisfying and had me cheering. I was impressed and surprised by the story being told, the characters and the interactions I had with them, and how the visuals made certain elements more impactful and disturbing than if they were conveyed by just a note or some dialogue. The pacing is something I will rant about to anyone who does or does not want to listen, but since you're here, I'm assuming you do. The story sets up everything perfectly, leaving little breadcrumbs scattered throughout to pique your interest and concern, and really puts you in the experience. So, when everything rapidly escalates, it's almost cathartic because of all the tension the game built up is finally being released. Even after this, the story continued to shock and at times disturb me, and then the ending hits and it just feels perfect. I can't really fault anything in the story of Murder House. It does everything I want in a story, but with brevity, a feat that shows the developer knows exactly what they are doing.
Hey, what are you goofing around for? Set those lights up and let's get rolling.
Murder House is a survival horror game, so you know what's going to come next. Tank controls a user control Emma, but she can only sprint for a little while before she has to stop because she pulled a tendon at track practice. Even though her sprint is limited, it's more than enough for the situations I experienced and was never something I had to worry about. The game is displayed from fixed camera angles, but they aren't static. Some angles are fixed, but the game also utilizes a moving camera from a fixed angle, which follows Emma as she moves through the house and will snap to another angle following a screen transition. This gives the game more of a, and I'm gonna fucking throw up a little saying this, a cinematic vibe. It also makes the locations feel like a real place because of how the camera is used when exploring. My only issue is that in certain small rooms or tight hallways, the swooping camera can either get caught on the environment or objects within it, which can be a bit disorientating sometimes. It was very confusing when the camera was freaking out, and it took a little bit before I could get my bearings again. This did become a problem when it occurred while the Easter Ripper was chasing me. Luckily, these hiccups were rare and didn't hurt the overall experience. The game also has limited saves, so the player must collect pencils and use them to save at a single designated safe room under the stairs in the entrance of the house. These pencils are found throughout the house, either placed out in the open in the environment or locked away inside drawers and such. There are more than enough of these pencils, so worrying about saving isn't really an issue. Because the only safe room is located at the center of the house and the game is pretty short, if you do end up being murdered, you won't lose much progress. Considering how easy it is to die in Murder House and the fact I only found 2 health items in the entire game, this is a very good thing. There are also some little very cool things that happen throughout the game, but I don't want to spoil them for you because if you're going to play this, I want you to be as surprised as I was when they occurred.
Chop chop, we don't have all day.
As I mentioned before, the first half of Murder House is spent getting the player familiar with the house, experiencing and filming the news story, and building the tension and unease before the Easter Ripper appears. The main gameplay loop of the second half of Murder House is finding items to unlock doors or move obstructions to locate the eggs needed for the Easter egg hunt while avoiding the murderous desires of the Easter Ripper. You will need to explore every part of the house to find the eggs you need. And this very simple gameplay loop is extremely satisfying because when you do progress, however slightly, you feel like you've achieved a lot as you've outsmarted and outplayed the Easter Ripper. I should probably talk about the Easter Ripper a bit more because that's how video game reviews work. The big bad bunny boy is pretty simple in his design. He follows you around the house trying to kill you. If you move through a door, he will do the same but with a slight delay to give the player a small head start to figure out what they are going to do next. And that is either keep running until they lose the Easter Ripper, hide in a closet or under a bed, or enter the few areas where he can't access such as the attic or the safe room. If you enter the safe room while he's chasing you, you will encounter a funny thing where his model clips through the wall and you can just see him swinging his sickle, but thankfully you don't take any damage. But I gotta admire this guy's persistence. If you manage to lose him, he will continue to look for you throughout the house. You can keep tabs on him by listening for the sounds of him walking or opening a door, which is extremely tense and unsettling as you don't exactly know where he is, just that he is close. Emma does get her hands on some weapons, including a pipe, a pistol and another gun, but to be honest, I only use these guns at the very end of the game, and I never use the pipe, despite what the sewer fairy told me.
Was it this precious gold pipe?
Pipe.
You are a liar! I have nothing to give to you!
You can't kill the Ripper, so trying to fight him wasn't too much of a risk because I didn't want to waste healing items or ammunition. That old chestnut of avoiding combat to avoid using precious items was the best strategy in my opinion. But if you aren't careful, and you aren't paying attention to his sounds or where you're going, he can and will completely fuck you up. And this tension stays throughout the entire game. Even when I knew I was safe, I always kept an ear out and walked slowly just in case he decided to show up. He isn't in the game for very long, which you'd think would be a bad thing, but because you feel his presence from the very start of the game, when he does appear, you already feel like you've been avoiding him for a long time, even though he hasn't physically been there. This shows how formidable and terrifying an antagonist the Easter Ripper is. I wouldn't complain if he was in the game longer, and it would have been fun to see him a bit more, but the game is so expertly paced that adding any more could be detrimental to how good this game is. Murder House doesn't do anything drastically different from other survival horror games, but it stands out and is beyond enjoyable by just how well it implements and executes the mechanics that survival horror fans are familiar with. This is another example of how good Puppet Combo is at what they do. They have a deep understanding of every detail of survival horror and use their knowledge and talent to create fun and terrifying horror games which are perfectly balanced in terms of the mechanics and what the player can do versus what the antagonist can do. This tightrope walk can easily be fucked up, which usually results in the game unfairly punishing the player for making wrong decisions or using items, or a game which provides the player with too much and trivializes the tension and threats. But Murder House walks that tightrope with ease, and this analogy is getting dumb, so I'm gonna stop before I have an aneurysm caused by sheer stupidity.
I hate every second of this.
The graphics and artistic design is classic Puppet Combo. A love for sexy PS1/PS2 style graphics combined with the aesthetic of 70s to 80s low budget grindhouse horror films. This influence is obvious in the game's intro credits, menus, environments, and the designs of the characters. All the characters look like they were plucked out of a B-grade horror film and placed into the game. The seedy boss looks appropriately seedy. The on-camera reporter looks like a reporter working for a tabloid news channel. Tom looks like Tom, and Emma looks like a quiet, small-town girl who's a bit shy and just wants to try her best. They are all low-detailed enough to achieve that PS1, PS2 aesthetic, but detailed enough to make them distinctive and reflect the people their personalities and dialogue articulate. It's just all really fucking good.
Is Anthony Smith, executed in the electric chair in 1985, back from the dead? And back for revenge on anyone who enters his house? Find out soon if we don't get the fuck out of here!
But obviously, the best looking character is the Easter Ripper himself. That bunny suit is just fucking creepy. It just looks fucked. The eyes are pitch black and has little creepy bunny teeth. It's coloured purple or light pink, but covered with these stains of God knows what, and it looks like it would smell like something no normal person ever wants to smell. He is truly a disturbing looking antagonist, and this, coupled with his backstory, made me want to stay the fuck away from him. The home of the Easter Ripper is where you and Emma spend most of your time in Murder House, and what a beautiful place it is. The exterior of the property is surrounded and separated from the outside world by a large fence with barbed wire on top, and only one exit, which would make a former prisoner nostalgic for their time on the inside. The house sits on a fairly large piece of land which the player can explore. The garden could use a green thumb, and the grass is overgrown and unkempt. The exterior of the House of Murder looks much better in comparison. The white paint hasn't peeled off and all the windows are still intact, albeit dirty. The only sign of decay is the front door, which looks deteriorated and could easily be broken if hit hard enough. Behind the house is the large greenhouse where the Easter Ripper would play games of his victims. Much like the home, nothing seems out of the ordinary with the greenhouse from the outside. The only signs that the place is abandoned are the dying plants that can be seen. The interior is where love for the craft and old school horror films truly shines. The house has 2 floors, an attic and a basement. It's fucking huge. Not Spencer Mansion huge, but damn.
Wow, what a mansion!
This serial killer is living a better life than me. I'd say ghouls if it wasn't for all the, kitty murder. Each room and area is heavily detailed and distinctive, which makes navigating its dark halls a breeze. I could rave about the house for the entirety of this video, but I'll keep it short and sweet. The house is dirty and gross. You can almost smell just how moldy, dusty, and what's that word I'm looking for?
Ew, it's musty.
Thank you, Dana. The paint on the walls is peeling and the carpet has been ripped up to expose the rotted floorboards underneath. Most of the furniture has been covered with a white cloth, besides a few chairs, a piano, some cupboards which may or not contain goodies, a TV with the best channel in the world, and the occasional closet and bed, which make for really good hiding places. Everything has a decayed and rotted look, which really makes the home feel like a disgusting and dirty place. There's an attic, which looks like an attic, and the basement, which, looks like a gross and wet basement. There are other locations as well, one of which is a room full of nightmares with shit inside which truly disturbed me, but I don't want to spoil everything in this review. What I think really makes the house and environments feel uneasy and extra eerie was the game drip feeding you the history and crimes of the Easter Ripper. As you find things out, you begin to look at things through the lens of what fucked up crimes could have been committed in these rooms. Mundane things made my mind race with disturbing scenarios when I looked at them through that lens. Puppet Combo really knows how to make an environment and use the limitations of the PS1, PS2 aesthetic to their advantage to create a truly unsettling and scary place.
Put in a little extra effort, and you can really get ahead. If you know what I mean.
Okay, I'll keep that in mind.
The sound and music in Puppet Combo titles are a favourite element of mine about their games, and Murder House does not disappoint. The classic survival horror soundscape is beautifully represented and combined with synths reminiscent of 70s and 80s horror films to create awesome tracks. I want to talk about the voice acting first. It's B-movie goodness in the best way possible. It feels stilted and a bit off, but deliberately so. The character performances are great and really emulate the films that they were inspired by.
No, the house is empty.
That bastard. I should have given you the $50.
The sound effects are also top notch. Picking up items triggers an awesome synth sound that I fucking loved.
Nice.
The echoes of the player's footsteps as they explore the house made me feel uneasy because I always thought the Easter Ripper could hear them. This, combined with the sounds of the Easter Ripper walking around and opening doors, was so unsettling because I just couldn't make out exactly where he was, so I was always hella paranoid. His presence was always felt, even when he hadn't appeared yet. Murder House is also great at leaving the player to sit in silence, which made me uncomfortable and kept me on the edge of my seat, so any slight out of place sound really stood out. The door opening sound effects when entering rooms were heavy and weighty, which I know is a weird thing to say about doors, but it really added to the decayed character of the house. One of my favourite things was when I opened doors and the game was loading. I could hear the faint sound of that noise the disc made in the tray of a PlayStation 1 or 2 when it's loading. That noise? You know the one, the loading noise. When I first heard it, I said out loud, "Oh, that's fucking cool." It's small touches like these that really elevate an experience, and I will always praise developers when they go the extra mile, even if that mile is extremely subtle. But the piece de resistance is the music. Just fucking cook this shit up and inject it right into my veins. This slaps harder than that Spider-Man porno. The music for this game comes in two delicious flavours. The more upfront tracks, which come at specific moments or encounters with the Easter Ripper, and the background ambient tracks. The latter are much more chilled and relaxed, but still have a sense of dread. They usually consist of one or two instruments, mainly a synth-sounding piano that lingers on specific notes for an extended amount of time, which are accompanied by a droning sound in the background. These combined are what instill a sense of calm but also dread, and they work beautifully together. When the game wants that dread to increase, the synth piano shifts to the background and the droning becomes more prominent. That transition is extremely subtle and hella smooth, and my body physically felt the stress and tension caused by the music before I realised the instrumental composition had changed. The more upfront tracks are just as good. They utilise a similar composition and instrument selection, but also incorporate higher pitched piercing sounds that got in my head and under my skin. Sometimes, the droning sound disappeared and that piercing sound is all that was playing, and fuck, it made me feel so damn uneasy. When you encounter the Easter Ripper, the music changes to instill panic. There is a rapid electro bass drum that replicates the feeling of your heart beating fast in your chest. The droning and piercing sounds become louder and more sporadic, cutting in and out at seemingly random intervals. There is no recognisable rhythm, but it's done on purpose and used to perfectly emulate the stress of running into and being chased by the fucking Easter Ripper. Music, sound, design and all that jazz are one of the most important parts of a horror game, and Murder House knows it. All of the tracks, no matter how prominent, are all perfectly implemented to complement whatever mood the game wants you to feel or enhance what is occurring on screen. When I play games, I want to notice the music, but I also want it to be natural so it doesn't feel out of place. It's all about that word, feel. The music and sound design make you feel dread, stress, ease, or whatever without intruding on the experience. It's subtle, but prominent. What I'm trying to say is that all of the sounds in Murder House are fucking top notch. Fuck, I'm a good YouTuber.
I apologize to the viewers at home.
Murder House really surprised me. I didn't expect to come away with it with so much to say, so much to praise, or that I would have enjoyed it as much as I did. I know that Puppet Combo makes games I will enjoy on some level, whether it be through the atmosphere, story, music, artistic design, or gameplay. They just make games that I like. But Murder House hit differently. It combined all the things I enjoy in a horror game, but also expanded and elevated them. The whole experience, from top to bottom, from the most in-your-face details to the subtler ones, was full of the shit that I enjoy. Murder House is a short, concise, and extremely effective horror game. It does what it set out to do and executes its intent with ease. I don't think I could recommend this game any more than I already have. If you haven't played it, just go and do it already.
Alright, let's do this.
Thank you all for watching my review of Murder House, and thank you to my script editor Cassie and to all my supporters over at Patreon who have now appeared on your screen. You are god tier ghosts and ghouls. If you have played Murder House, leave a comment and let me know what you think. And if you have any recommendations for games I should check out, whether AAA or indie, let me know below as well. I have a Discord if you want to continue the spooky conversations, and a Patreon where you can support the channel and get access to videos early, as well as some other goodies. I hope you all have a spooky as fuck time, and I will see y'all in the next one. It's gonna be something special. Bye.
How can you sit there and eat pizza?